So here we are at the last video in the series. So what we're going to do in this particular video is do a little bit different. I'm not going to do live coding. What I'm going to do is walk you through the coding that it takes to create an async task and explain each of the different pieces. Before I do that, I want to remind you about the website that's out on GitHub. So all of the things that I've gone through over this video tutorial is available at github.com, intro Android online. So you can download all of the samples that I'm about to talk about and kind of walk through it with the video so that you're actually running this. So if you don't have it now, pause this video. I'll wait right here, go out, grab it, and when you're ready to get started, come back and start me up again. Okay, so hey, welcome back. So what we're going to do is walk through what it takes now to do this asynchronous task to be able to pull videos. To just refresh your memory on what this thing is actually going to do is it's asynchronously going to load this image. So if we click back, there's no navigation other than the back button at this point. I see all these different songs that we added in here. If you click one, what it's going to do is go pull this data, and then it's going to randomly pull a photo by searching Google to be able to add a new one. So if we click Story of My Life again, it's going to go randomly pull the same image. Yay. So let's try that one more time. Let's see what comes back. Apparently that's a really popular image out there on Google. So let's try Counting Stars. Counting Stars from One Republic pulls that back. And again, if you do Counting Stars, it is going to go pull a different image and pull it back. Okay, so how do we implement that? So first off, remember that we had two activities, and our second activity was a song detail activity. So what we're going to do, as we went through here and populated this data from our service, the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to create we're going to create an async task, and I call this random image async task. And then we're going to call execute. Now the thing about an image, or a thing about an async task, is it allows you to do things off of the main UI thread. And that's a requirement for Android now, so you can't actually block that UI thread by doing network operations. So what I'm going to do is go out, search Google, look for a set of images, convert that over into, or read this JSON that that Google can give me, parse that out, and then randomly bind an image to the screen. So what I'm going to operate on are the name, album, and artist. So I'm going to pass this data in to be able to make this thing execute. So I've collapsed everything. So right now, if you just look here, I have a inner class that operates inside of the song detail class. So this is completely encapsulated within the activity of song detail, and it is a good practice with Android to do that. So if we look here at this class, I give it a name and I extend from async class. If you go back in the book, it'll walk you through what each of these different things mean, but essentially this is the output of what I'm going to be looking for, and this is what I'm going to be taking in. So we have a do in background and we have a post execute. So let's talk about these two methods. There's a few other ones in the book. It'd be a really good idea to focus on what different methods are available with this async task. You may see it again. But here we basically have a do in background, and when it's done, it's going to return this bitmap. The difference between these two operations is that this runs on the UI thread, this does not. So this gives us the ability to take some processing off of the UI thread. Now the async task is good for small, short-lived tasks. It's not really good for those really long-running tasks. There's some different options for doing that. So let's jump in and take a look and see what happens in this do in background. If I expand that open, you'll see that it takes string with an ellipse. If you recall from your Java knowledge from before, this ellipse here means that I can pass any number of parameters. It's one or more. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pass in one or more parameters, and we know from up here that I'm passing name, album, and artist. What I want to pass back is I want to get a JSON URL from something. So I'm going to do get JSON, and I'm going to pass this URL, and I'm doing something called join strings, and then I have this setting here of 1,000. So first of all, let's look at this and see what getJSON does. If I do a control click, you'll see, if I look down here, you see URL, you see connection, you see get. Looks like it's fetching a URL. So this appears to be getting a URL. I have a switch statement for 200, 201, and then it does a buffered reader that reads an input string, builds a string beater. So it looks like this is getting me a list of all of the lines from a URL. Okay, so let's go in and look at that actual URL. So if I do a control click on URL, see what that is. Comes up here, sure enough, it looks like I'm doing Google APIs and doing AJAX services, calling search. So, and then Q equals is the parameters that I'm passing in at the end. So if I were to copy this out and paste this over here into Google and type West plus rice, it looks like it pulls back some search results with information matching that search criteria. So this is essentially what I want to do, is get all of this data back for my albums and artists, parse this into some type of JSON, and then be able to kind of display it to the screen. Now the book is going to talk about, in this chapter a little bit later on, JSON. JSON is a Google provided library that will do some conversion to JSON. The kind of catch of it is that you have to create some objects that map up to the JSON. I've already done that. Again, you can see the Google objects from the JSON that's been created in GitHub. So we'll take a look at those if you want to, but these are generated objects. So I'm effectively just going to use those. Alright, so back to song detail. So I have my URL, and I've got this thing called join string. Control plus click takes us down here, and you see that it takes a list of parameters, a string builder, a for loop, and then it does some work. So it looks like it is looping through all the parameters that are here. So for each param and parameters, I'm doing a replace of all the blanks with pluses, and then I'm appending a plus at the end. So it looks like it's taking all the artists and song names, replacing any spaces with pluses, and then concatenating each together. And then it's returning the string. It looks like it's chopping off the last plus at the very end. So that's building out that URL that was giving me the data like we saw here. So it's building out this URL here at the top. Makes sense. Alright, so that is our join string. This 1,000 is a timeout operation. So if we were to look at that, we can see it appears that timeout operation is used for our connections and our read timeouts. So we have that. Good. I do a log statement, so that's great. So you can see down here response data. So here's all the response data. And then I am going to search Google for images. So it looks like I'm doing the search results, which is one of those objects that got created, or image results. I pass new JSON from JSON. So it takes this string up here that I got returned and writes it into an image class. It creates that and maps that together. Looks like I'm doing actually an image to get. So get random image URL and image results with the 0. If we click in that, it looks like I'm doing a recursive call here on itself. So we'll call itself 3 times. On the 3rd time it will return null. So it's going to try 3 times to get an image on the results. So there's a counter here with the termination condition at the top. Here's a list of results, grabs results from response data, gets a random, pseudo-random number from the result size, iterates over it, and looks to return an unscaped URL from the result set if the image has a height of less than or equal to 600 and the width of less than or 800. Okay, so it's looking for smaller images, not really large ones. And then it returns, oh, that's the recursive call. So right here it returns the escaped URL, otherwise it calls itself and will return null if it goes 3 times. Good, so nice little recursive call here. So let's keep going back up. So this should have our string of a unescaped URL. So now we're going to go to this fetch image. Control click. Fetch image returns a bitmap, so we're getting closer. Passing in the URL that we want. We've got try catches. We open up a URL to that string, open up a connection. With this open connection, we look for, if it's not a response code of 200, throw an error. We're going to get our input stream, and then we're going to take a bitmap factory and decode the string and return it. We have a bunch of error catching here, and then we'll return null if nothing works. So with that, that looks like we have returned out of or doing background a bitmap. So if we collapse doing background and then we look at on post execute, so when this is complete, this method's going to be called passing in that bitmap. This is back on the UI thread. So this was asynchronous, this is back on the UI thread. So now that we're back on the main UI thread, we're going to get a hold of the image view that's on our detail list. So this image view right here, the guy that's right there, we're going to get a hold of that, and we're going to say if it's not null and bitmap is not null, we're going to set the bitmap, and we're done. Now a couple things to make this thing work that had to happen. First off, Android manifest. This is using an internet permission that we'll talk about in later chapters in the book, or if not, we'll do some videos and reading on it. But you need to have this permissions to use the internet or you'll get random errors. Another thing is that we use JSON. So I had to bring in JSON into this project. The way that you do that is you open up your Gradle build file. So if you look here, there is a build.gradle, and notice there's a dependency. Previously we had this compatibility of 7, but we added in a new JSON 224 library. So we add that in, so it has to be pulled in. And one comment, in order to kick that off, to make that actually come in, drop down here to Preferences and look up Gradle and use this auto import. It'll be a little bit slower, but it will automatically pull in any additional imports. What's nice about Gradle is it uses the Maven repos that you may or may not be familiar with. So that's it. We went through, we created a simple application that displayed a list. We allowed it to capture events. We mocked in a service business logic example so that way we could pull some data in. When we clicked on something, we called a second activity, passing things in through an intent with some extras. We displayed that data to the screen, and then we created an async task and actually bound that to the page without blocking the UI. And we did that by using JSON and by searching the Google Search API. Okay, so I hope you learned something and had a good time with this. Appreciate your time.